Pew, 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 pew. Hey there, YouTube. I'm here giving you the dish on the Hateful Eight. Yeah, that was 8. I did it right the first time. The Hateful Eight is a film about, about eight, see, Hateful Eight, people in a haberdashery, which I thought was like a hat making place, but I don't believe that's what it is. It's sort of like a rest stop, I guess, in stagecoach days, and it's about 10 years or so after the Civil War, and so it's like a real potpourri of people. It's one of those movies where it's kind of, the action is contained in a small location, and all of the tension is just like coming from these really diverse characters just clashing with one another because conflict is the secret ingredient, other than Chemical X, in making good movies, because without conflict everybody's just happy, and like that's like so boring. So 70mm film was Quentin Tarantino's choice for this. There haven't been that many films made in 70mm, and none made since like the mid-60s, because most were shot in 35mm. So it was just difficult and expensive for theaters to just have this projector that played 70mm if they weren't going to like have that many movies made with it. So there were like probably 10-15 movies made, including Mutiny on the Bounty and Ben-Hur, which in fact Tarantino got a lot of the equipment to shoot this film, so that's quite interesting. Tarantino's a big stickler on film, which is why I mentioned this. Because he insists that he shoots his movie on film, and even though, you know, most places have converted to digital because you don't need projectionists, you just have people who press a button. He converted 98 theaters to play film in order to have this traveling roadshow film showing. And you get this fancy booklet. Oh, it's upside down. You get this fancy booklet, which it's very brief. It has like a couple pictures and, you know, sort of sanitized bio, but, you know, very interesting nonetheless. It's probably better to just talk about the actors first, because they're all pretty famous, and they are all famous, and they all add their own flavor to this. Most of them are Tarantino veterans, like Samuel L. Jackson, who, excuse me, was in Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown, and not Tarantino, Jungle Fever by Spike Lee, which was like one of my favorite movies, being the product of Jungle Fever myself. I think Samuel L. Jackson is amazing in this, as he has been in the other Tarantino movies I've seen him in. He plays the bounty hunter. I'm going to give you their nicknames, because they all have nicknames, because, you know, it's funner that way. And then we got Kurt Russell, who is married to Goldie Hawn. That's how I knew him until this year, when I started actually seeing all the movies that he was in, which are mostly action movies, which is why I had not seen them. He was in Big Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York, and another movie that's very related to this one, as it turns out, The Thing, because the composer, Ennio Morricone, he did the soundtrack for that movie, and a couple of the songs that were not chosen for that were used in this movie. And Tarantino made all of the cast watch The Thing, because he said that this movie, the script, was a take on how he felt watching The Thing, which The Thing is a sort of similar thing because it's about a bunch of people in like a remote Arctic like lab, or no, it's not a lab, it's like an army like base type thing, or like Air Force, and there's this thing like a mutant type thing, and it infects people, and you can't really tell most of the time. So it's just kind of like how the dynamics go when they're all like suspicious of each other, which definitely plays a lot into the Hateful Eight. And then we got Jennifer Jason Leigh, who I love. Literally every movie I've seen her in, she's been like the most, like the best, like actor to watch. Like, I mean, apparently she's really big into method acting. She was nominated for a Golden Globe for this even before it premiered. So, and I think based on having seen it, it's definitely justified. She plays Daisy Domergue. She doesn't have a nickname, so. I mean, she's the prisoner because she's the prisoner, and she's being taken to be hanged, taken in for the bounty. But, I mean, the prisoner doesn't really tell you all that much. It's not really a nickname, it's just like a description of, it's like her status. And then we got Damien Bielshire. I'm not sure how exactly it's Bielshire. He's, from this like famous Mexican acting family, sort of like the Barrymores, but of Mexico. He was one. He and Jennifer Jason Leigh had not previously worked with Tarantino, and he plays Bob the Mexican. As you know, you can understand the parallel there. I think he does a good job, although he doesn't probably has like maybe the least or the second least, amount of stuff to do among the 8. Michael Madsen, who is a Tarantino veteran. He was in Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, and then also like other stuff like Thelma and Louise. And he's a poet, and he's been in 150 movies. Like, this guy is all over the place. He plays the Cowpuncher, which that's the only nickname. I feel like they don't mention that in the movie. They just use his real name. Walter Goggins, the Gog. Everyone's favorite Gog. He is on The Shield and Justified, which I think might have just ended, but he was on those. And he plays this like Confederate douchebag who's going to be the sheriff of the town in which Daisy Domergue will be hanged. But they're on the stagecoach traveling, and there's like a blizzard, so they can't get there yet, which is why all the action happens. He does a good job too, and he provides some comic relief, which is needed. And, it's always fun to laugh at Confederates, I suppose. Tim Roth, he's the real Tarantino veteran. If we're having a Tarantino off, he will win. In that, he was in Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and he was in 4 Rooms, which was like a joint production with like Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, and like 2 other people, I forgot. And so I guess he just wins by like a hair. And then last but certainly not least, the eminent Bruce Dern, character actor who gained fame by playing the main character in Nebraska, and the father of Laura Dern, who is my absolute favorite, who is in Blue Velvet and Citizen Ruth, one of my favorite movies. But this is not about her. This is about Mr. Dern, not Little Miss Dern. I don't want to defeminize her. Miss Dern, she's not little. She's like a 50-year-old woman. Okay. Anyway, so he plays the Confederate. You can guess what his deal is. He's a Confederate veteran. And you need strong actors like that when most of the plot is contained. Like, most movies have a bunch of different characters and a bunch of different locations, so it provides some interest and stuff, and you can have like, one scene where there's just like a random, person who's not in another scene who kind of delivers some new information, or, a funny, one-liners and stuff. I don't know. But, so it's a lot harder when you're kind of, you don't have that, and so you really need, obviously good writing, which Tarantino provides, and also good characters to deliver it and make it exciting to watch. Because especially Jennifer Jason Leigh, she really plays her character very high up on the intensity rating. It's almost theatrical, which I think is necessary. The cinematography is done by someone Tarantino had worked with a lot before. So they had a relationship, but it's really beautiful. Like, I think the 70 millimeter really helps. 70 millimeter means it's like really wide, widescreen. And it really, I mean, it looks like a Western. Because when you think of those Westerns that are widescreen, but this is like super widescreen. But there's just lots of really beautiful shots. Especially when they're traveling through the blizzard and they get a lot of landscape shots. This was shot around Telluride, where they have the film festival, in the mountains, and there were just some really wonderful shots and really interesting creative flourishes that it seemed much more beautiful than I thought Tarantino was inclined to do. Ennio Morricone hasn't worked on a Western soundtrack in over 30 years, until he worked with Tarantino on Django Unchained, but then he really didn't like the experience, because I've heard Tarantino is just like awful. Just as like a person, he's just a jerk, which doesn't surprise me looking at his movies. But he vowed never to work with him again, but then Morricone changed his mind and was like, why not? But he also like sort of half-assed it. Not that it sounded bad, but in that he like reused some stuff from The Thing, and like he used something from The Exorcist. And then, you know, there were some other really interesting contemporary choices I won't spoil for you. I would say, yes, see this movie, because it's pretty beautiful. Like, there's lots of really beautiful shots. And overall, it's pretty, I mean, just the 70 millimeter is a really interesting visual experience. Also, acting fantastic, especially Jennifer Jason Leigh. And I thought Walter Goggins did a good job. That's a silly name. And Samuel L. Jackson, of course. So the acting was really good. And I was very surprised, but the plot thematically was very rich when you looked into it. Like, it was the point where I wanted to watch it again. Not like immediately, but I want to see it again, like in the regular release. The writing, directing is good. Tarantino knows what he's doing. The music, fantastic. The only bad parts I thought were that it is indulgent, and so if you don't really like Tarantino very much, I doubt if you'll be converted and be like, whoa, I just never, knew. It's kind of like, it's prettier, a little softer around the edges, maybe. Maybe not, because it's pretty violent, but it has a lot more beauty to it than I think a lot of other Tarantino films have, but it is still definitely Tarantino. Overall, I think it's definitely worth a watch. So, thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and look at this hat. I'm wearing it because it's New Year's Day today. Woo! 2016! Yeah. Woo, woo. Woo, woo. It's also sort of a bad hair day for me, and I'm also wearing a robe, because last night was New Year's Eve. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but, take that for what you will. But I'm glad I could spend it with you, YouTube homies.